So, we're gonna be asking you 50 questions today.
50 questions. Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, about yourself and like about your career.
Good.
Alright,
Can't wait to talk about myself.
All right. So, first question. Oh yeah.
Would
sure.
you like to cut? This is where all the magic happens. Come on. Welcome to my humble abode.
All right. So, first question. If you could collaborate with any artist dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm a big fan of Dave Grohl for what he's accomplished in his life. Paul McCartney might come to mind. Maybe one of the great classical composers, although I don't know how fun it would be to collaborate with Mozart or Beethoven because they're probably control freaks. But anyway, probably McCartney or Dave Grohl or something like that, maybe.
The craziest thing you've ever done in your life?
Craziest thing? I've done a lot of crazy things, but I toured in a band all through my 20s, which was pretty crazy. Imagine like touring around, that was pretty crazy. Skydiving, does that count? That's pretty crazy. I like extreme rollerblading. That's pretty crazy.
When you went on tour, did you tour around like America? Or like...
Not quite America, really the East Coast. So about as west as Ohio, north is Vermont and Maine, and south is like the heart of Virginia, and all in between that area. We would just like circle around kind of thing.
All right. What's the best compliment someone has ever given to you?
As a teacher or a performer?
Both.
As a teacher, their compliments are more in like the satisfaction of helping someone, or someone really has achieved something. It's not so much someone being like, "You're the man." Although at Cabaret recently, my parents came, and Mr. Audicki said some beautiful things to my parents about my teaching, and things like that. So my parents were like, "Oh my God," As a performer, just like things like, I don't know why you're not on the big stages or something along those lines, or, I have had the experience of having fans sing along with songs. Can you imagine how powerful that is? Not that happens anymore, but like in my career, I have had the experience of like an audience taking over with a song you wrote. That's pretty powerful, you know what I mean?
So I've heard that you're in a band. What's the name of your band?
Not in a band right now. I'm pretty much a solo act. I play mostly solo. I do play with a friend of mine, so it's just under my name, Mark Femino. But I did, over break, I just finished 2 albums. One's a real rock album, and one's more of an acoustic album. So it's under my name, Mark Femino.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
If you could be any cartoon like character in the world, what cartoon character would you be?
Cartoon character. Does something like The Incredibles count?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of The Incredibles. It's one of my favorite movies ever. So, let's see. Jack Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Jack is my Disney Plus avatar.
Great.
So I'll be Jack Jack. Go back to being a baby with superpowers. It's pretty dope.
All right. If you could take one thing to the desert, what would it be?
One thing to the desert, like not including food and water.
It could be food or water.
It would probably food and water to sustain life. After that, I don't know. Probably a tent. I would say like an instrument. I'm a music teacher, but I mean, I don't know if I'm sitting in the desert. If I brought a guitar with me, that would be that great, I might want something that's, keeps snakes and scorpions away from me rather than, or gives me shelter. That's probably what I would take to the desert.
All right. Favorite song to play on a guitar?
Oh, like not my own or one of my own? I mean, a lot of mine are...
Either your own or like...
Well, let me think. In like cover gigs and stuff, there's a song I like to play called Never Going Back Again. It's Lindsey Buckingham, Fleetwood Mac. That one's really fun to play. Of my own songs, what's fun to play? There's a song called The Distance that I like to play. There's one I wrote kind of about Mrs. Mannion. It's called Empathy. That's really fun to play. And I don't know if that helps you, but...
Who's the most famous person you've ever met?
Bob Dylan, Dave Matthews. Yeah, those are probably the most famous people I've ever met.
How was like that experience? Were they like
The Dave Matthews Band. Do you know who Dave Matthews is by any chance? They tour all over the world, but
I might have heard of them.
yeah, Dave Matthews is pretty big in my generation. His band was awesome. Really kind, cool, socially conscious people, like recycling, and they didn't want to waste any of the food backstage and stuff like that. Bob Dylan was not as fun. Bob, he was kind of a weenie. He was yelling at his band all night and stuff like that. So I was so excited. I'm gonna meet a legend. Do you know Bob Dylan? No. No. Okay. Bob Dylan's a legend. He's a songwriting legend, and I was really excited to meet him. And the experience itself was not as cool as I thought it would be, but that's okay.
What inspired you to start making music and becoming a music teacher?
That's a great question. To make music and becoming a music teacher. Let's see. Making music, the way I tell kids is kind of like it was. It was elementary music school, and the teacher busted out like a kunga or something like that, and wanted to know if kids could do certain rhythms, and I could do it, and other kids couldn't. And I was like, I'm good at this or something. So it really was school. And then as far as teaching, well, I don't know. Then I started when I first picked up any instrument, I became a tinkerer, and I would just kind of naturally write songs. I think from the very first moment I ever picked up a guitar, I was pretty much writing songs. As far as becoming a teacher, I always thought I would have a knack for it. I was always pretty good with kids and had a lot of patience and all that kind of stuff. And it was a good marriage of being something that I love, music, and think about deeply, and helping kids out. In all honesty, I did not go to school for education. I went with a straight music degree. So it kind of, I always say I snuck into teaching through the back door. I don't think that makes me a bad teacher or a good teacher necessarily. That's the way my experience went, was I was told that I couldn't become a teacher without a 5-year master's program. And lo and behold, I kind of snuck in without it and went at a sort of indirect route to getting all my certifications and all that kind of stuff. So.
Other than music, what's your favorite thing to do?
I exercise an awful lot. I rollerblade a lot. I paddleboard a lot. Not now, but I snowboard, ski. I bike a lot. I just went on a pretty good bike ride over the weekend, mountain biking, that kind of thing. So,
what's the best thing that has happened to you so far this year?
This year, I would say probably having concerts again. Being able to teach music again. I know that sounds kind of like a no-brainer, but during COVID, I don't want to say that music was harder than everything else, but it was one of the hardest hit. We could not play and sing for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So, but now, I just mentioned cabaret earlier. That was a really special night. The kids were awesome. I played some of the most difficult stuff I've ever played. It was just a really great night. So probably something like cabaret would have been a good idea. Do you want me to shut that door? Is that?
Yeah, sure.
Here, I got it. Yeah, but I would say just having concerts again and getting back to a sense of normalcy, which we haven't been able to do for a while. Look, if you look over here at this part of the room,
yeah,
the risers are up. That is just happened over break. Those risers haven't been in a chorus room that hasn't had risers for over 2 years. Since the pandemic hit, and they had to change the structure of my room. So that's pretty awesome. Just getting back to making music with kids. That's what I like to do. So I'm kind of straightening out while we'll do this. Go ahead.
One trend you'd like to participate in.
Trend?
Yeah.
You mean like social media or something like that?
Yeah, maybe in the music industry or just social media in general.
Honestly, right now, I just told you I finished a couple of albums, and in full disclosure, I am not the best at self-promotion and stuff like that. So I am kind of actively engaging in Instagram and TikTok and obviously Spotify and Pandora, but I'm better at that sort of stuff. So I would just like to be more active, which hopefully that will happen soon, because I'm kind of laying the foundation for that, if you will.
Do you prefer horror or humor?
Horror or humor? Definitely humor. Honestly, I'm a little squeamish at horror movies. I'm not great. Like, there's that new movie that was like Choose or Die. Have you seen this on Netflix? And I was like, that looks good. I don't know. I love watching comedians. So definitely humor over horror.
What's your favorite movie that you've ever watched?
It's a good question. I mentioned The Incredibles. That was it for a long time. However, the first one. And then I saw The King's Speech, which was about Queen Elizabeth's father. I want to say King George, but it might not be. Philip, maybe. I don't know. But that was a beautiful movie. And brought a little tear to my eye. So that's one of my favorites, King's Speech.
What's your top 3 songs?
I don't know. That's a hard one to answer. But I would say the Beatles, Eleanor Rigby is one of my favorite songs ever, for sure. And then, music is funny, and I'm sure you guys are like this too, but when you're kind of growing up, that's sometimes the music that impacts you the most. And so I would just say, let's just say bands. A lot of the 90s bands, like the Seattle bands, like Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Alice in Chains, those bands really resonate with me. So I'll answer it that way.
What inspires you the most?
Good question. I find inspiration in different things. It could be a moving experience. It could be watching somebody else that is kind of being true to themselves. Honestly, let me answer it this way. The most inspiring thing for me as a teacher is watching someone give their best. There's nothing really, or my daughter, I have an 18-year-old daughter, and watching her either in a play or in sports, just giving everything that they have. And that goes the same for art as well. If it's a musician or an artist or whatever, somebody that's given it everything they've got, that is usually pretty moving to me.
So this is kind of a silly question, but Batman or Spiderman?
Ha! Batman. Why? The more interesting question is why? Because Batman's a normal guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just a guy that has a lot of ingenuity and money, but I mean, Spider-Man has actual physical powers, just like Superman or Wonder Woman, right? But Batman doesn't have any real powers, just kind of is a normal person that has a lot of gadgets, which I think is kind of cooler.
How do you start your day?
I have 2 cats, and I usually start my day with them scratching at my door. Feed me, because I used to let them sleep with me, but I don't let them sleep with me anymore because I don't sleep. So I wake up and feed them, and my coffee is being made, and that's how I start my day. Nothing too fancy there.
What color clothing do you wear the most?
Not today, but usually black, I wear jeans a lot, so blue and black, I guess, probably.
What's your least favorite season?
You're not gonna like this from a teacher, but probably fall is my least favorite season. And here's why. It's always stressful in the beginning of something that is, it's gonna get cold. It's the foreshadowing for the cold, but once it all gets here, it's great, My favorite, and this is, I like my job. I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but summer is I love heat. I just love heat. So even when it gets hot, and I don't know about you, I can't wait to open the windows. It's not warm enough yet to leave the windows open and just let the fresh air in. So I just like fresh air and heat. I could totally live in tropical climate year round for sure. Does that make me sound old? I'm going to Florida. I'm going to Florida soon.
What's your biggest fear right now?
I'm sending my daughter to college. There's a bunch of financial things I'm a little worried about. She's going to a pretty expensive school, and we got to cover that. So that would be my biggest fear.
Do you like vintage things more or more modern things?
That totally depends. To answer your question, my sister really loves like houses that were made in like the 17 and 1800s. I don't dig that stuff at all. You have the creaky steps, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you know, there are certain guitars. They're like a 59 Gretsch or something like that, or Les Paul. That stuff is kind of cool. But I would say more modern than sort of antique. That's how I'll answer that question.
What's your least favorite app right now?
App?
Yeah.
Well, I know I just mentioned about the trends in social media, but I don't like how, I don't know how you feel as a young person. I don't like how involved in phones and everything everyone is all the time, or how engaged. And I don't like that there's a lot of depression surrounding people on whatever, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever, insert whatever. And that is what I don't like about that stuff. And the lack of engagement, like, you know, people just being together. I don't like that. So does that answer your question?
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of. It's not a specific one. It's not like Roblox. I don't like Roblox. You know, it's not like that, but.
What was the first instrument you learned to play?
I think it was trumpet. I say I think because I was playing piano shortly thereafter, but I think trumpet I started on, and then after that percussion thing, and then trumpet, and then piano, and then guitar. I played guitar for a long time, and played a lot of instruments, and now I play ukulele and mandolin, and I play bass and drums, and play a lot of instruments. But.
Please excuse the interruption. I have one quick announcement. At this time, all A-Push students should be making their way to room 121, Mr. Fallon's room, right now. A-Push to Mr. Fallon's room.
A-Push.
Thank you.
What's your favorite instrument to play?
Well, I would say guitar, but I would say guitar only because it's the one that has taken me the furthest in terms of creative pursuits and songwriting and all that stuff. But honestly, I know this is probably hard to understand at your age, but when you've been playing, I've been playing guitar I got my first guitar in 8th grade, and I was 13, and I'm 48, so it's 35 years. So if you think about it from that standpoint, like, I don't know if your parents are married or whatever, but you got to keep a relationship sort of fresh, right? You got to do new things. And so it's harder to keep a guitar fresh for me. So I like just exploring new instruments that are like new tuning. So that's why I play mandolin right now, because it's totally different tuning than the guitar. And I might, you know, someday it's like, maybe I'll try the cello, you know? So I just like new instruments at this point.
So what's your favorite, like, piece of clothes you like right now, or like article of clothes?
At home, I have a certain sweater that I like to wear. Is that what you're asking? It's like this ugly brown sweater that's too big for me, that's super comfortable, and I could just lay in. That's my favorite.
What's the best thing that has happened to you today?
Today, you know what? I shared a song with my 2nd graders today that I wrote with 2nd graders, but I just told you I've been working on this album, and I just mixed a bunch of songs, and I shared it with the 2nd grade, and they really liked it. It's about a little monkey that falls out of a tree and finds a trumpet and becomes a legend, basically. But I wrote it with 2nd graders, so it's a children's song that I played for 2nd graders and showed them how it came about. It happened through like boom. I don't know if you know what boom whackers are, but and it was an accident how it happened. But the 2nd graders helped me write a song, and I showed it to them today. That's pretty cool.
That's nice. Weirdest word in the English language?
Weirdest word?
Yes, in your opinion.
Weirdest word. Onomatopoeia? I don't know. Let me think. Weirdest word. I don't know. I'll go with onomatopoeia. Bang! I don't really know.
What's the dream country to visit? Like your dream country to visit?
I have always had some strange affinity to go to Australia. I don't know why. I just want to go to Australia. Maybe it's because there was a bunch of criminals that started. Do you know the story?
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just want to go to Australia. It's really expensive. I've been to a lot of European countries and, you know, been to South America a little bit and Canada, and I've never been to Africa, but for some reason Australia is calling me.
If you could be any animal, what animal would you be?
Any animal. I don't know. I'm gonna go with cat. I just like cats, but I don't know. Let me think. Is there a different animal that I would like to be? Maybe someone that, you know, would be cool. A bird would be cool, like a hawk or something, like fly around. How cool would that be, right? To actually be able to fly, something that flies. Let's go with that.
If you could go to any city right now, what city would you go to?
City. Well, I was just talking to Mr. Fallon. Fitness, Mr. Fallon. He just went to Memphis to see Elvis and like Nashville and stuff. One of the music cities like that. Maybe Nashville. I would go, or New Orleans. I've never been to New Orleans. That'd be fun.
When you write your songs, what inspires you?
Probably same as what inspired me before. Usually it's a feeling of something that is just really powerful. I find that creativity happens from that kind of thing, like a moving experience, and then it translates into music or something. But typically, now I haven't been writing in like about a month or so because I've been in the studio, but I would say generally speaking, it's some kind of a riff that just kind of gets under my skin, and I'm like, ooh, and that becomes the primary source of inspiration to do all the work. Meaning, like, got to flesh out the idea, got to write lyrics for it, but it's usually a melody and a riff that goes, ooh, I've never heard that before. That's kind of cool. I really like that.
What like makes you the happiest right now?
What makes me the happiest? Probably connection to people, like whether it's my daughter or students or whatever. Some sort of connection is what makes me the happiest, I think.
What's the first thing you notice in someone when you first meet them?
First thing I notice. Let me think. Who have I met recently that I could? I met an old friend that I hadn't seen in 22 years, and I guess I just notice. You know, obviously, first thing. I mean, obviously, there's physical things you notice about people, but also, you know, how well does the conversation flow? I mean, that you're talking specific like first impressions.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe eyes. Maybe eyes first. I don't know.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
My cat's name is Peeve, and she's big, so that's my pet peeve. Hey! No, what's my biggest pet peeve? Oh, I know what it is. You're not gonna like this. It's like literally, people misuse literally constantly, and they overuse it. Overuse and misuse of literally and irony.
Yes.
Both of those get misused constantly.
A skill you're working on mastering.
Snowboarding. I mean, you know, honestly, I snowboarded the last time was about a month ago. I think the slopes closed on April 2nd, and I went like a week prior. Mm-hmm. So I know it was warm out and it was weird, but I'm really trying to get, I know it's weird, 48 years old learning how to snowboard, but that's what I'm working on.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
It's probably cliche, but you know, find your happiness or something like that. But you know, as you get older, different advice resonates differently. Like something that you probably can't relate to right now, but things like retirement. You know what I mean? I've been teaching for 17 years, you know? So, but probably, you know, follow your bliss, be happy, that kind of thing. What's your biggest regret so far this year? My biggest regret. It's hard to get into in an interview like this, but I have a couple of family situations that are a little tough right now. So probably having to do with some specific family things that haven't gone quite the way I would have liked them to have gone.
Do you think you're a confrontational person?
No. Actually, this might sound strange, but I wish I was more confrontational.
Yeah.
I feel like I smooth things over a little bit more than I should, as opposed to like state my case. Have you ever heard the adage, would you rather be hated or go unnoticed? It's an interesting, thought-provoking thing. And I don't really know. I would always say I'd rather be hated than go unnoticed, I think, because at least you're saying something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If you could have any exotic animal as a pet, what animal would it be?
Exotic animal as a pet. I'm inclined to say a snake, but I don't think I could feed mice to a snake all day. So what would be like what would be adorable to have? How about a panda?
Oh yeah, those are pretty cute.
Would it be dangerous to have a panda?
Around how many songs have you written?
It's around 150. I know that answer. It's give or take, maybe 160, 140, but I think it's at least 150 actually.
Do you remember the first song you ever wrote?
I remember the first riff I ever wrote, yeah. But I don't know if that counts as a song. It was a song, but it was like when I first picked up a guitar, and my brother and cousin were there, and I came up with this little thing, and they were like, "That's awesome, man! It's like, let's write a song." And so we wrote a song. I think we wrote it for my mother. I couldn't possibly remember the words, but I could probably remember the riff. And that's, thousands of riffs ago.
Yeah.
Many thousands of riffs ago. So.
What other professional areas other than music are you attracted to?
I mean, if I were to do something else, I could see myself doing like marketing or like writing or something creative, which is, similar, but, like writing ad campaigns or something along those lines. I am kind of a people person. I remember when I was in college, I was afraid to be a musician. And it was getting things like international relations and stuff like that, so somewhere in there.
What's the thing that upsets you the most?
What upsets me the most? Apathy. I don't like when people don't seem to care. It does, my students wouldn't like hearing this, but I'm pretty relaxed in my classroom, and if I'm working with one section, I don't mind if the kids are like doing their thing, but sometimes it's hard to focus them back, that kind of thing. So.
All right, and last question: how would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as silly and empathetic and caring, and somewhere in there.
Very nice.
Yeah, responsible. I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you for having us. It was very.
Thank you.
interesting to
I'm
learn
glad you
more
came
about
into my home away from home. Look at this place. We got like 37 guitars, a couple of basses, and that kind of thing. So pianos. Thanks for coming in. That was interesting.